Thank you for staying with us this far. But in case you are just joining us, karibu tena sana. This is Good Morning Kenya, coming to you live from the broadcasting house here in Nairobi. I am Jain Wambui. Would love to know where you are watching us from this morning. You can always interact with us using the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. Our official station handle ever remains to be at KBC Channel 1. My handle is at Jain Wambui. Right now, we move on to our family check segment, and today, as mentioned earlier on in the intro, we're going to be talking about parenting styles and just understanding the impact that it has on our children. Given we all know throughout school you're taught as long as you have food, shelter and clothing, you're good to go. And as a parent and as a child as well, do you think this is enough to raise a wholesome, healthy child? That is the question we are asking you today, and you can always share with us your thoughts using the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter once more. Now, in studio to help us with this conversation, we have Victor Otieno, who is a psychologist who will be shedding more light in this. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for making time to be with us.
I'm happy to be here.
All right. Are you available on the social media platforms for viewers to interact with you?
Yes. We are Victor Otieno on Facebook.
All right. Fantastic. Now, looking at this particular point of conversation today about parenting styles and the impact that it has on children, before we get even deeper into various aspects, why do you think a parenting style is important in regards to how a child turns up in the long run?
It is important because parents are the first teachers of the child. And a child, many times we assume a child is too young, but they are watching everything the parent is. So how a parent handles them, it will influence how they will turn out, even as parents later on in lives.
Yes.
And even how they interact with their peers, how they handle issues, how they adjust in the school, in the community. Yeah, so it's very, very important the type of parenting style a parent is using in bringing up their children. Yes.
Now, through and through, even when you go through education, you're taught as long as you have food, shelter and clothing, you should be able to lead a decent life. But from a psychological point of standing, looking at your expertise, do this come to being nearly enough to raise a wholesome child?
It is not enough. It is not enough. And I know we have seen from the way our economic setup is, parents are very, very busy and looking for money, and children are left in the hands of house girls, house managers, if you like. And at the end of the day, some parents have seen cases where a parent is surprised of how their child turns out, you know. So it is very, very important. Food is important, but it's not enough. You need the parent around. That's the meaning of parenting, being around so that a child can look up to you. Yes.
All right. Now, let's come to the whole aspect of upbringing, now looking at the parents themselves. To what extent do you think the way we as parents were brought up affects how in the long run you also become a parent?
In a great way, because like I mentioned, the first teacher is the parent.
Yes.
So the way we were brought up, and I know in Africa, many of us were brought up by very strict parents, authoritarian parents. You know, it is, I've said so. You do it because I've said so. So yes, it affects to a great extent the way we turn up as parents. Even though schooling, interaction, and you know, because as they say, the world is a global village, as you interact with others, as through programs like this, people can learn and people can change their mindsets. But yes, unless you change, the way you are brought up will affect how you will turn out to be a parent.
Okay. Now, let's talk a bit about the major groups of parenting styles that have been identified by studies that have been done. And you have already mentioned the first one, that is the authoritarian.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about that.
Yes, the authoritarian parent is the one who expects a result without any response. It's assumed they know everything, so you do it because I've said so. We assume, the authoritarian parent assume the child doesn't think. They assume the child is too young. The child doesn't know, and they know the best. So they demand, they want results, but they don't expect the child to give any feedback, you know. And maybe if I talk about the other one, there's a permissive permissive.
Before you actually get to the other categories, looking at this particular parenting style, the authoritarian, does it have any pros versus what, from your definition, it's clearly mostly one-sided, where the parent has exclusive control in terms of communication and any other aspects that go into the home. Does it come with any prospects, so that we just don't share the negativity that is in this parenting style?
Definitely, there are goodness to it.
Yes.
You know, there are certain things like you are having your child in a car.
Yes.
Insisting the child puts on the seat belt is for their good. Okay, insisting your child maybe doesn't talk to strangers is for their own good. So yes, it helps the child know the lines not to cross.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. We're not just here to look at the bad. Now let's come to the next one, permissive parenting style that you've mentioned.
Yes,
tell us a bit about
permissive parenting is a parenting style in which a parent wants to be the friend to a child. So most of the time they will allow the child to do almost everything the child wants, because you don't want to annoy the child, you don't want to, you know, disappoint the child, everything the child wants. So this one
pros and cons as well.
Okay, let me start with the pros.
Yes.
The child gets to exercise independence from a young age. Okay, so they get to develop decision making. However, on the flip side, the child will be expected to make decisions that they might not be ready developmentally to make. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now there is another parenting style that is called the authoritative.
Yes.
Be sure there's authoritarian and there's authoritative. Tell us a bit about this one.
Yes, authoritative is expecting, making demands of the child, but while being responsive to the needs of the child, to the opinions of the child. It's balanced, because you demand result, yes, but the child also has a room to give feedback. They have a room to suggest. They have a room to develop within reason. So I'd say it's the best parenting style, because you will steer the child to grow in the right path while they are also developing their decision-making abilities. Yes.
All right. This one is balanced.
Yes,
right.
You can say balance, yes.
Okay. Now, the fourth category is uninvolved or neglectful parenting.
Yes.
From just the words, the wording itself, tell us more that we need to know about this parenting style.
In this parenting style, the parent is simply not involved. They don't care what's happening. You know, in some cases, they outrightly neglect, you know. And when we say neglecting, we are talking about the needs of the child. They are the emotional needs, the physical needs, they are the educational needs, then they are the medical needs.
Yes.
So where a parent is neglectful, they are not involved whatsoever. They are not able to.
Intentionally or unintentionally?
Exactly. It can be intentional, it can be inadvertent, yes.
All right. Are there any pros to this?
I don't think. A parent should be involved.
Yes.
That's why we're calling it parenting. Parenting, I think, means being present. So there can never be any goodness to being uninvolved.
Completely.
Exactly.
Now, as a parent, why is it important to understand your parenting style, whether you are conscious to it or not, to also understand why your children are responding to you the way they do?
You see, it's important to understand who you are, because you can't help someone. You can't, you know, relate with someone well when you don't know who you are, because you will end up projecting, you know, whether you want it or whether you know it or not, whether you want it or not, what you are affects the people around you, and your children are the people around you, and they need you and they look up to you to be complete people of the society. So it is important to understand. At least when you understand, then you know what to work on. Yes, because it will affect the child eventually.
All right. Now, much as there are these four main categories of parenting, it doesn't mean that a parent should just stick to one.
No. You cannot, you know, life is not black and white.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like I said, you might have been brought up by authoritarian parents. Therefore, the only parenting style you know is authoritarian. Doesn't mean you stick with it. You see, after getting information is supposed to change you. Information is supposed to, you use the information to be better than you are. We get better every day. That's why people go to school even when they are old. So after understanding who you are, you can always adjust. I'm not saying it's not possible maybe to change also 100%, but you can pick the good and you leave the not so good. Yes.
Now, much as a parent, you of course want the best for your children, and looking at people that may have been raised by maybe neglectful or extremely authoritarian parents, they tend to overcompensate when it comes to raising their children. In what ways does this negatively lead to negative parenting?
I think what we need to do is we need to know that the time we were brought up is different from today, and because you are neglected doesn't mean you stop. It doesn't mean you have to stop being a parent. You know, many people are neglected; they overcompensate.
Yeah.
I know this. Yes, so you don't have to, because if you overcompensate, the child will be malformed. They will not turn out all right. You sometimes do everything for the child, so they will never know how to make decisions for themselves. So that's why we are saying information is important. Now, once you have the information, don't indulge as a neglectful parent. Don't be a permissive parent, because having looked at the downside of each style, then it is good that you use what's the best. Don't overcompensate. You see, I know I've had some parents saying, I don't want my child to lack because I grew in lack. So whatever the child demands for is given. I've seen a case where a parent is leaving the house at 11 p.m. to go and buy, a food that is not necessarily a must.
Yes. It's not urgent or important at the moment.
It's not life-saving.
Yes.
That is, we are bringing up a child thinking that everything is available. And later on, when they become an adult, they'll discover that the world is not like that. You have to work for some of these things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Overcompensating is something that most people struggle with, especially having come from a tough upbringing or childhood. People tend to overcompensate. Now, we are also living in a very competitive time economically, and for most parents, we always have the excuse that I don't have enough time. I can't be at home throughout. I have to work to make sure I'm giving these kids all these necessities that they need to lead a wholesome life. That comes in the aspect of time and finding a balance. How would you advise parents to go about this? Because there's always a reason as to why you can't be there, because you need to do this. But then the child also needs time from you as a parent.
I think we need to be deliberate as parents. We need to be deliberate. When it comes
to
time management. Yes, when it comes to our jobs, we make time. When it comes to the things we consider important, we make the time. You will go to work whether it is raining or not. So if you factor it in that I am a parent, and you become deliberate that I'm going to give my child 1 hour in the evening, I'm going to give my child 30 minutes, and then you be disciplined. Be disciplined to it. After you have you have placed it in your diary somewhere, then be disciplined to it. There are cases where parents reach home and they carry work home.
Yes.
They are in the laptop or on the phone, and the child is trying to get your attention, they can't. It's just an issue of time management.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, remember, this conversation is not meant to criticize you as a parent and your parenting styles. It is meant to be informative, to help you be better positioned when it comes to the parenting style you employ and how this consequently will impact your children. So right now we're focusing on aspects that you can adjust or look at to further understand how your parenting affects your child. Let's talk a bit about discipline. This has always been a touchy area for most parents, and in most households there's always the favorite parent, the fun parent, and the disciplinarian. But discipline and it consequently affecting the children. What are your thoughts on it?
Discipline, okay, if I go back to the authoritative parenting style, you see, discipline, they will discipline the child, yes, but having explained why we have to go through this kind of discipline case. A child knows the consequences. They know exactly what discipline is achieving. Many times, especially the authoritarian, it is what I've said, many times you will punish the child without the child knowing why they are being punished, and then that kind of discipline will not meet its target. So you should communicate with your child, make rules together, so that they know that I'm now breaking the rules. So, and then you don't have to be too nice to the child to the extent that you don't discipline them.
Yes.
The child is not your friend. You are supposed to be friendly, but the child is not your friend. They still need you so that they get direction in life.
All right.
Yeah.
And for parents, when it comes to being on the same page with discipline, because we know children, they will wrong you, and then you reprimand them, and then they go to the other parent, and they have their way with them. Understanding discipline, and as parents being on the same page at all times to just ensure that you are together. Impact is the same on the child. Yes.
I think as parents who are bringing up children, you need to be communicating.
Yes.
You know, you need to be communicating, and when goals are clear, then all of you will be working towards them. You see, no matter, even though you don't want to punish them because you love them so much, but you also know that if you don't discipline them, you don't show them the right path, then the world will discipline them at some later stage in life. So it's better you discipline them yourself, because at least you love them.
All right.
The world doesn't.
Asiyefunzwa na mamaye,
yes,
atafunzwa na ulimwengu. Then there's also the question of age-appropriate discipline, because that is also another area that for most parents we struggle with. You know, there's an age that you can spank, and there's a certain age that they get to that you now turn to talking it out. Importance of understanding these different stages and what form of discipline to apply with the children.
It's important because at every age, like I said, you need to communicate the discipline. At every age, there is a level of engagement you can have with the child. So understand that at a particular age, but okay, you can be nice, but be firm. Even from a very young age, be firm. I don't know, us that we grew up with very strict parents, there was just sometimes even a stare alone. That is enough to tell you.
It's over.
Visitors come in the house and maybe chairs are few, just one stare and you know exactly what's going to happen.
Yes.
So yes, you need to be firm. Be firm. Whichever style you're using, be firm. They know these lines cannot be crossed, you know. And as they continue to grow, communicate. Let them understand why you are saying what you are saying.
All right. Communication is now actually the next aspect that I want us to focus in when it comes to bettering your parenting style.
Yes.
As we have learned from the authoritative, communication is two-way.
Yes.
Authoritarian communication is one way. Permissive, there's basically you do what you want, I'll accept it. And neglectful, there's no communication whatsoever.
Yes.
Why is communication between a parent and their child extremely important in the long-term benefit of this child?
It is, communication is everything. You know, it's how the child will understand what the parent expects.
Yes.
It's how the parent will instruct the child. It's how the child will also communicate their feelings, their frustrations, what they are. Remember, they are just experiencing life. So develop a way of communicating with the child from a very young age. Don't assume they are too young to understand. Communicate with them. You know, if you study child development, you are told a child is communicating from almost immediately after birth.
Yes.
Even the cry is communication. So it's indicative that there is a need that needs to be attended to. So communicate to the child, because you will then understand them. Then they will also know what you are saying. Exactly, yes.
All right. And then this boils down to age-appropriate communication.
Yes, yes, of course.
All right. Now, we welcome any questions or comments that you may be having in regards to this discussion. I will be getting to them in just a bit. Now, looking at the self-esteem of our children, they say the parent is at the center of this aspect of a child's life. True?
Yes.
How can a parent make or break the child's self-esteem?
It's number one is when you don't respond to their needs. When you don't respond to their needs, they'll feel neglected, they'll feel frustrated with time, until a time will reach they don't communicate, you know, and that is total. And it will even go to mental health issue, depression, you know. So it's important that a parent is responsive to the needs of the child. Being able to understand that my parent cares is a one way of boosting their esteem. They will know that they can depend on the parent. you know. So be responsible, be responsive to their needs, communicate with them. It affects their self-esteem.
All right. And does this aspect of self-esteem wear off over time as you grow up, or a parent's reinforcement cuts across regardless of the age?
It cuts across. Of course, a time will come when the child is now independent, is able to stand on their own.
Yes.
But in childhood, you know, childhood is all this time that the child is under the parent. They need to get assurances from the parent. They need affirmations from the parent. And like many people have said, a child doesn't stop being a child. To their parent. Yes. Because when the affirmation comes from your parent, it's very important. It's very important. It builds them up. It builds the child up. Yes. Even an adult. Even as you and
age,
I. When your mother tells you they love you, they care for you, you know, it builds you up.
All right. So esteem and parents go hand in hand throughout a child's life. Now, that brings me to the next aspect when it comes to parenting. And this is especially given we're living in a time where parents are so busy. There's always been this back and forth when it comes to the role of teachers and caregivers, and in most cases, nannies and domestic managers, or housemaids as commonly referred to, and the role that they have to play in the children's lives. First of all, what is your opinion when it comes to parents who are not as involved and have left their children to alternative caregivers that are not biologically related to them?
Well, in a few cases you can be lucky to get a good caregiver, but it's not guaranteed. And at the end of the day, only one person is called the parent. You, the parent of the child.
Yes.
So, in as much as is possible, try to make time for parenting. Try to make time for parenting. I know there are a few cases where you have a good house manager, and there are some cases where the schools are very good, you know.
Yes.
And but you see, again, it also depends on the numbers that the teacher is handling in the class. It depends on, you know, you want to depend on someone's mood or working conditions, you know. So the best way is for the parent to be involved. The others, it's important that we have good ones, okay? It is important we have good caregivers. It's important we have good teachers, but you really can't be 100% sure.
Yes.
You are only sure when you are doing it yourself, you know. But it is important to have good teachers. It is important to have good caregivers.
Now, looking at conversations, and especially when children get to the adolescent stage of life, they get curious about their bodies changing, how they are feeling, and they, in most cases, most of them are introduced to these conversations with their teachers, and some parents leave these conversations exclusively to their teachers. How can teachers and parents just come together to help the child navigate through this phase of their life where they're getting to understand their bodies and themselves better? Okay,
but I know the best scenario is all the lessons on a child's life coming from the parent. That's the best.
Should be initiated by the parent.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because the parent, you know, like I said, the parent loves the child. So they will not give the child wrong information. Many times, in some cases, you'll find the parent ignores these parts, you know, like menstruation, body changes on a boy. They discover from online, and that's a reality that we have to face nowadays.
Yes.
We can be very busy making money here, and then we leave the child with internet in the house. Problem with that is, in online, they will not be taught the way you would like them to be taught. There are perverts outside there. There are people whose intentions are not right for our children. You know. So yes, in cases where parents can't, teachers, I know teachers do a good job in this. They will teach the girls about their body changes, how to handle relationships.
Yes.
But the best case scenario, it should come from the parent.
Should come from the parent. I know most parents dread those conversations, especially when your child starts asking those questions. It's important. Now, before we get to continue, there's Cozy Movia who has sent in a message via Twitter saying, please talk about parenting and people-pleasing tendencies. What's the relationship when it comes to how, for example, how I raise my children and them growing up to be people-pleasers?
I think the parenting style that will contribute to this most of the time is authoritarian, because the child is brought up in an environment where what the mother or the father said is it.
That's the final.
You know, Problem with it is along the way the child will learn the tricks, because a time will come they want their independence. Yes. They want, you know, they are learning certain things that the parent will not necessarily approve of. So they will please you in front of you, and if not helped along the way, they will grow up to be people pleasers. You know. Because they have learned to survive, you know, survival tactics, because the parents have said it must be done. I've said it must be done. So yes, if they are not helped along the way, they can grow to be people pleasers. Problem with that is when you are people pleasing, you are not really yourself. You are a hypocrite. And we don't want hypocrites for parents. We don't want hypocrites in our job places. You don't have boundaries. Exactly. Whatever you are doing, you are not doing because you believe in it. Yes. You are doing it to get favors. You are doing it, you know, to please people. It's not coming from a genuine place, you know. Yeah. All right. Now, moving from people pleasing, coming to the other extreme end, and it's a reality that we're dealing with in this day and time, about depression and mental illnesses, and especially among the teens. What's the relationship between parenting and depression, and consequently a sad situation that we are seeing, suicide among teens? Yes, you see, if there's any relation. Of course there is. Yes. I've talked about authoritarian, for example. A child is placed in a place where they can't give their opinion. Sometimes they are being bullied in the classroom. They can't say because the parent has said this school is good, stay there. Sometimes, I'm not saying all the times, a teacher might not, you know, get along with their child. The child is trying to communicate. They can't get through to you. So we have seen cases where a child is saying, I don't want to go back to this school, and a parent is insisting. We have seen some of the cases on media. Yes. You know, some children going as far as killing themselves, you know. Sometimes you have not performed the way the parent expects because you fear what's coming. Some children run away, some children, you know, commit suicide. Yes. So yes, parenting style affects mental health. Also neglectful children, you know, children who have been neglected. They have been neglected so much that their self-esteem, you know, doesn't develop. Some of them grow up in frustrations. Then, you know, to compensate, they engage in some behaviors that are not right. Okay. So if the parenting does touch a lot, I mean, on the life of a child. Yes. All right. And there's also the aspect of religion, which I find is also a very touchy area for most families. Maybe parents could be from different religious backgrounds, and they conflict on how to raise the children. What is your opinion in such cases where religion is involved and parents might not agree on which way to raise their child, and consequently the child might not have any anchor when it comes to religion? Well, I mentioned a while back about communication. At the end of the day, is you know, they say in law that whatever is considered is in the best interest of the child. Yes. You know, we need to consider, we need to move the stage where we are seeing it's not about us, it's about the child and what's good for the child. So if you who are in different religion were able to come up together, you should be able to agree at least what is good for the child, you know, so that it is not about your ego, it's not about what you want. You know, because, but the best scenario is you need to communicate about some of these things also when you are starting to live. Yeah. You are starting to live, you are going to live, you know, you will bring up some people who are neither this religion or the other religion. So you need to have factored it in the communication. But if you find yourself in a place where you are now here, then consider what is best for the child, you know. Even in situations where maybe the religion you have brought up that child in is extreme, and the child wants to break away from that. Exactly. We need to know that our children, even as they are growing up, they are individual, they are different people from us, they are not us. So we can only guide them, yes, we know we are protecting them, but a time must come that we will have to allow the child to be who they are. And speaking about that, I'm not going to mention this particular viewer's name, they've requested so. They talk about how parents need to stop raising their children so that they can take care of them when they grow up. That is toxic, and it's something that I'm seeing with so many African parents. What are your thoughts on that? Yes, it is true. I know many in Africa, many parents, whatever they are doing is as an investment. They expect the child to take care of them when they are old. But as a nation also, we need to break this. As a people, we need to break from this. We need to stop using our children as our retirement package. Plans.
Yes.
We need to make plans. You are working, make plans. Make your retirement plans. It's not the child. It need to break, because some people will work into their 40s, into their 50s. They are still educating their brothers. They are still taking care of their parents. I know there are cases where you have to do it now, but me and you, we are working now.
Yes.
we need to make our own plans, and there are insurance packages that deals with retirement. Their bodies like is it called what, NSSF?
Yes.
We just need to make a plan. We need to break that cycle. It makes sure that poverty never stops.
All right, so children are not your retirement plan.
They are not.
Okay, now another sensitive area that comes into play, and this is also something that the president actually mentioned, looking at his speech just the other day in the Madaraka Day celebration, is about single-parent homes, and the fact that since looking at the 2009 and 2019 census, that number has grown by such a significant figure. Looking at single-parent homes and two-parent homes and the effect that they have on children, what are your thoughts from a professional point of standing?
We cannot run away.
In as much as we cannot always control what happens.
We can't run away from parenting. In fact, it's by many projections, it's going to increase.
Yes.
Because of very many factors. There are the natural factors like death. There are divorces which are on the increase, But it doesn't have to affect the way a child is brought up.
Okay.
In a case where, say, a mother, because those are the majority cases.
In most cases, yes.
The mother is the one with the children. They are male figures, father figures. They don't have to be their father. They can be their uncles. They can be respectable members of the society, like religious leaders.
Yes.
They can even be, in some cases, teachers. Just get a male figure that is able to, so that they are able to learn what they need to learn from the parent. We also don't assume that fathers don't bring up children. Even in the case of our single father, also look for a female figure, and I'm sure they are there. They are aunties, they are teachers, Sunday school teachers. So just work with it, because it's a reality that's not running away.
Okay. So in single-parent situations, look for a figure of the other gender to help your children, and especially if you have children of the other gender.
Exactly.
All right. Now let's talk about gadgets. We're living in a time where kuna TV room, there's the main TV in the living area, kuna TV kwa bedroom, there's a laptop, there's a tablet, there's a phone. And for most parents, you do this because also you want to keep your children busy, tech savvy.
Yes.
And in the long run, you leave them to those gadgets. Pros and cons of this.
Well, pros, the children get lots of information, and they interact with so many people, even beyond their local environment. But there are lots of downsides, because sometimes, especially in a case where the use of gadgets is not supervised, children are likely to receive information that they are not ready to receive yet. Like we also mentioned, there are bad people online. There are dangerous games. You have heard of dangerous games where children are told to cut themselves. So it's good to balance. It's good to balance. But I'd also say we also need to consider the physical health of the child. Sometimes they overindulge in using gadgets to an extent that they become obese, they become unhealthy. I know
couch potatoes,
everything. The parent will insist, do homework, then take your tablet. Do homework, take your laptop. So it's good to give them room also to play. To be active physically. Apart from also supervising what they're doing online. You need to supervise. And I'd say it's better to, plan it. Plan it.
Okay. Now, as we bring this conversation to a close, we are seeing more and more young youth becoming pregnant and becoming parents at 19, 20, 21, at most 24. And they say a person's brain isn't fully developed, at least, I don't know, the age of 25 to somewhere 30 therein. Looking at this, individuals that find themselves or intentionally become parents at a very young age, what do they need to understand about parenting?
Wow.
Because we get excited about having a baby.
Yes.
Forgetting this is going to become a full human being.
You know, parenting is very hard. And like we mentioned before, many people assume it is only money that you require, but it is beyond money. So in a case where someone finds themselves a parent when they are still young, and they're actually still young up to at least the age of 25. So they need, I mean, help from people who will not be judgmental to you. You know, in some cases, a girl has become a mother when they're still a student. In some families, she will face lots of judgment, lots of castigation, you know. So they need support. We need to know if there is help, if there's any such support. You need to understand that this person first is not ready to be a parent. So they need to be guided. They need to be helped. Their hands need to be held, especially on managing discipline. You know, because sometimes you mentioned 18. So there are cases where someone is a parent at the age of 14. They are themselves a child, so they need help.
All right. Parenting does not stop the minute your child leaves your home. It is a lifelong adventure that you keep learning as you continue to grow. I'm seeing so much of your feedback. Due to the interest of time, I'll just read maybe two. Michael points out that in as much as we're seeing many single parents, we need to understand that both parents have critical roles to play when it comes to raising their children. There's also Jim who's saying such a fantastic conversation. We need to talk about this more, and especially when it comes to contraceptives and children. That's another very controversial area. And finally, we have Frederick who is saying such a key conversation. We need to have more of this, and parents actually accepting to be corrected because they do not know everything.
Exactly.
All right. So that brings us to a close of this conversation. Thank you so much for your feedback. We truly appreciate them. We will be having more of this conversation right here on Family Check. We have been speaking with Victor Otieno. He is a psychologist that has been shedding so much valuable information in regards to this topic of today. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
All right. That's that from us here on Good Morning Kenya. Thank you so much. We hope to see you again tomorrow morning. I am Jain Wambui. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing.